Inside Foos presents Foos Talk Live.
Happy third anniversary to Foosball Radio. Hi, everybody. I'm Jim Stevens, and going all the way back to when Tom Robinson, Chuck Dooley, and Nino DiJohn started Foosball Radio all those years ago, now 3. Right through Foos Talk Live, which I've had the pleasure of working with Tom, Mark Torres, and Adam Gilson on for the last year and a half. Foosball Radio has changed the landscape of the sport, bringing you interviews, bringing you a focus on events, on trends, and everything else. It's been a real pleasure to talk with some of the biggest names in the sport, from Hall of Famers all the way down to regional tournament directors and local tournament directors as well. So keep up the good work, Tom, and everybody involved with making Foosball Radio so very special.
Hey, what's up, everybody? This is Clay Toomey. Alrighty, what does the podcast mean to me? Well, I will tell you that it means a few different things. If I'm there listening to Tom, you know, it's because I want to feel good about myself. I want to feel better about, you know, my day, and generally just, you know, kind of feel like I'm hanging out with a friend. You know, if I want to feel dumb or ignorant or, you know, be corrected on something that I thought I knew but I didn't, you know, that's what Jim is there for, and I appreciate that too. And of course, if I just want to be confused about life and have someone to laugh at sometimes, as well as laugh with occasionally as well, then Mark usually fills that role perfectly. I love the addition of Adam to the crew here in recent months because I think he's hilarious, and I'm not even saying that as a joke. Obviously, the comments about Mark and Jim were clearly jokes. But all silliness aside, what does the podcast mean to me? Well, last year, you know, sucked. Everybody knows that 2020 was not like the best year ever. And being able to just lay down on a Sunday night on the couch or in bed or just wherever, throw in some earbuds and just relax and hear people talk about foosball, that was a big deal. I mean, it was something that made, at the very least, it made Sunday nights better. And you know, we didn't have tournaments. We didn't even have local foosball for a while. And, you know, not only in terms of just overall sucking for the whole year, but the foosball community kind of suffered from all that, I think. And I missed foosball, you know, so the podcast helped reconnect me to a community that I care about. So I'm grateful for that. And going back even farther to the first days of Foosball Radio, you know, that was pre-COVID, so I didn't have the same flavor of appreciation for it back then, but I was just fascinated at the level of quality that was put into Foosball podcast. I love foosball, I love podcasts, and two of my favorite things had come together to make something that was just really cool. So I'm so glad that Foosball Radio exists. I'm glad that Foos Talk Live exists, and I hope it exists for many years to come into the future. And after 3 years, I'll say happy anniversary, happy third anniversary, and cheers to many, many more.
Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday. Third anniversary, Foos Talk Radio, amazing. And what did we need during the pandemic? We needed the companionship of our foosball friends. We needed the warmth and nostalgia and our foosball heroes and the stories and the excitement of reliving moments past and all the new memories we created. Tom Robinson, Clay Toomey, Jim Stevens, myself, especially myself, but all the guests. It's been an incredible journey, and the adventure continues. I'm excited to join the quest wherever it heads next as we deliver the foosball rings to Mount Mordor. That doesn't mean anything. It's just random and crazy. But hey, Adam Gilson, let's do this, buddy. Come on. Happy third anniversary.
This is Adam Gilson, Foosball Radio, third anniversary celebration. Comments, take one.
What has Foosball Radio meant to me?
Adam Gilson, take two.
What has Foosball Radio meant to me? Well, the podcast has been two things. No, not like that.
Foosball Radio third anniversary celebration comment. Adam Gilson, take 3.
Happy birthday. Foosball Radio, 3 years. 3 more coming. This is so bad. I don't know why I can't think of anything.
Foosball Radio 3rd anniversary celebration comment. Take 4.
Hey, Foosball Radio, happy 3rd anniversary. I'm looking forward to another 3 years, 4 years, 10 years. It's been a great ride for me to be able to hang out with you all and get to know you better, Tom and everybody else, Jim and I guess Mark. And it's just a nice place to go on Sundays, and when we're not having tournaments, we get to talk to, learn more from our guests that come in, and just expand upon the foosball vocabulary for all of everybody that plays, especially when we're unable to be playing that particular weekend. So, happy anniversary. Here's again, 3, 10, 15, 20, whatever. Just keep it going.
It's Foos Talk Live.
You talking to me?
Compelling and lively banter.
Are you going to talk to us?
Talking foosball.
Foosball was how I measured my value as a man. You took that away.
Players and fans, promoters and pros. Unedited and raw.
Talk.
Living in the moment.
We have a lot of important things to talk about.
All while practicing social distancing.
Cool. We'll talk. No big whoop.
Let's get this thing started. Foos Talk Live. Coming to you from the studios of Inside Foos. It's the 80th episode of Foos Talk Live, celebrating the 3rd year anniversary of Foosball Radio, the platform by which Foos Talk Live and Shooting the Shot are made possible. Brought to you by Inside Foos, offering monthly subscriptions with access to some of the most exciting matches ever recorded. Plus live tournaments, pre- and post-show analysis, interviews, and original programming. Visit InsideFoos.com this weekend for exclusive live streaming play-by-play action of the Louisiana State Championships in New Orleans. Brought to you by 518 Prints, one of the best printers of promotional items and foosball apparel. Visit 518prints.com today. Also brought to you by ProtectoFlex, the world's premier foosball safety accessory. Go to protecto-flex.com. Brought to you by Rodlock. Practice more, reach less. The best practice tool in foosball. Visit rod-lock.com. Brought to you by Foosballers The Movie. This Joe Hestlinger foosball documentary is now available as a worldwide download at foosballersthemovie.com. Also brought to you by the USTSO, helping to usher in a new era of competitive foosball. Become a member at usafoosball.com today. And brought to you by Foosball Clubs USA, promoting foosball through school systems all over the United States. Make a donation today at foosballclubsusa.com. Well, hey there, it's Tom Robinson. Truth be told, 3 years of producing Foosball Radio and Foos Talk Live has really crept up on us. This Tuesday, October 20th, marks our official 3rd anniversary with the Ultimate Foosball Podcast. The reason this podcast was created and continues to air is you, the listener. Reflecting on the genesis of Foosball Radio, it was the direct result of the support and encouragement of the people around me. Without the creative energy of my coworker and friend, Eric Cicino, we would not have had a product. Eric sat with me for weeks while we planned how to promote and how to air Foosball Radio. Every image and video promo released was the result of Eric's hard work and dedication to the success of Foosball Radio. We will forever be in his debt. Meanwhile, Nino DiJohn and Chuck Dooley helped to devise the concept and develop the format for air. Nino and Chuck generously gave their time, foosball expertise, and street cred. There's no way I would have been able to line up guests or even know how to approach the players about appearing on the show. My sincere thanks to Chuck Dooley and Nino DiJohn. Nino, Chuck, and I sat down for a test of the format to see how it would work. We had a blast.
You got to hate the person that's on the other side of that table.
You're in a battle.
Do you now?
You're in a battle.
It's not a friendly competition.
No, you're in it in it to win it. And you're not in it to shake his hand and say, you're in it to win it. You do shake their hand.
Yes.
Well, that's part of etiquette, right?
99% of the time, you're playing against your friends. I mean,
yes,
when
exactly.
you walk up to the table, you say hello. When that ball drops, you're
It's
an
a
asshole.
battle. That's right.
Yeah, no kidding.
And then when it's over, you're friends again.
That's right.
So it's controlled aggression. It is really a battlefield, if you will. So it's a way of really letting loose with some of those, shall we say, hormonal things that go on with the average. Well, it's not just for men either, right?
Absolutely not.
There's plenty of women doing this.
Sure.
Yeah.
So they have also a need to compete and be aggressive, but it's a very controlled and very disciplined kind of aggression. Because
It should be anyway.
Yeah, right. Well,
For the majority of the time, correct.
once we had our ducks in a row, we began generating promotional video and audio to announce the arrival of Foosball Radio. October 20th, 2018 was the day we released our first episode of Foosball Radio, which happened to include the number one foosball player in the world, Tony Spraydeman. Our first guest was amazing. Tony was warm and relaxed and made for a top-notch kickoff.
Tune in for the premiere episode of Foosball Radio, the ultimate foosball podcast. Join me, Tom Robinson, my co-host Chuck Dooley, and Nino DiJohn as we celebrate with Tony Spraydeman, the number one foosball player in the world.
Yeah, I had certain goals as a kid. It's like first, I got a trophy. Then I wanted to win, a tournament. And then, of course, everybody wants a jacket, know. And then, I wanted to win. Once you get a jacket, then it's like the next level. You move up to expert, whatever. But one of my main goals was, for years, was to get on an Inside Foos video, and I remember I was like, it was, I think, about 2000 or so. I made my first video and I lost, and I lost. So my next goal after that was like, well, now I got to make the video and win,
Right.
and it's, so you just have, small goals to keep you going. And
Foosball Radio, telling the story of foosball one player at a time, beginning Saturday, October 20th.
With the airing of Foosball Radio Episode 1 Origins, we continued to add to the list, chatting with some of the biggest names in foosball, including players, promoters, and fans. Foosball Radio Foos Talk Live has over 110 episodes and has been downloaded over 42,000 times in 24 countries to date. During the COVID pandemic of 2020, Foosball Radio gave birth to a new concept, Foos Talk Live. Jim Stevens of Inside Foos, along with Mark Torres, Clay Toomey, and Adam Gilson, have jumped in to go live on Podbean every Sunday at 9 p.m. Eastern. As we celebrate our third anniversary, instead of playing highlights of shows that have already aired, we've been searching through the Foosball Radio archives and found 3 interviews that were recorded, but due to technical issues or timing, were never released to the public. Hence, what you're about to hear are early interviews with regional foosball figures who gave their time generously to go on mic. This is the Foosball Radio Lost Interviews. First, we take you back to the 2018 Pennsylvania State Championships, where we chatted with Tony Spraydeman and Jim Stevens. That same day, we were lucky to have a chance to talk to promoters John Lee and Ray Schneider, who took time away from their busy tournament. Here's that interview in its entirety.
Welcome back to Foosball Radio, the ultimate foosball podcast. We're telling the story of foosball, one player at a time. However, we have the great honor of talking to 2 great promoters of foosball who happen to be players as well. First, we have John Lee, who is a foosball promoter. Welcome, John.
Welcome.
Welcome, yeah.
Thank you. Thank you for having us.
You're welcome. And we have Ray Schneider, who's also a foosball promoter, who's been helping John for how many years?
3 years now.
3 years,
yeah.
Cool, very cool. And of course, Chuck Dooley and Nino DiJohn are hosts of Foosball Radio. Guys, I think this is the coolest thing. We're currently sitting at Pennsylvania States in 2018. And first of all, when you guys got into this industry, obviously you're players to start with. John, let's start with you. What was the first table you ever saw?
I think probably I was 8 or 9 years old, and I saw at a rec center an old dynamo.
Dynamo.
I didn't know anything about it until probably way down the road. 22, 23, when one of my friends was a bouncer at a bar, and he said, "Hey, you know that game Foosball?" And I'm like, "No." It's like, well, these guys play it here, and it's really, really kind of interesting and competitive. I'm like, okay. So I ended up going there. They had two striker tables there, and they announced that they'd have tournaments every week on Tuesdays. So I started going Tuesdays, and it was I couldn't believe what was going on.
Okay.
And at 8 years old or 9 years old at the rec center, you're spinning the rods and whacking the ball around.
Right.
Not really anything going on, but these guys passing and scoring, and it was just the sound it made was just it gets into your blood.
No doubt.
Yeah.
So, was there a point at which you felt like, okay, every time I show up for this, I'm getting my butt kicked? Was there a point where you said, you know what, I'm not going to do this anymore? Did you ever feel that way?
I did. You know what? Not so much that showing up every week was a problem, but not just myself, but I know a lot of people who have had a burnout where they take 3 or 4 or 5 years off and then they come back because, like I said, it's in the blood.
Yes.
And you get the urge to play.
Got it.
And you have to come back out.
I know me and Nino have taken a few years off, and and it's just you're always thinking about it anyway. You always want to get back to it.
Yep.
It's in your blood, like you said.
It never seems to end. That's for sure.
How big was the tournament when you first saw it? What kind of?
Oh, it was just a local. It was just a local. They did run a striker, like a large tournament, but I never thought I was good enough to even attempt going to one. Way down the road did I go to it was Masters in Atlanta, and you walk into a room and there are 40, 50 tables there. What I liken it to is like when the first time you've ever been at a ball field and you walk out and it's so vivid.
Yes.
The green and the lights and the seats and the people. Yeah, you walk into a ballroom and with all these tables, you're like, oh my God, look at this! This is going to be so much fun.
Right. So you made the transition at one point from a player to someone who puts on tournaments. What was that point? When did that happen?
That was actually after the hiatus when I came back and tried to start playing again. The local promoters, Jim Waterman, who was my partner in Maryland Foosball.
Gotcha.
He and his partner, Don Mayberry had moved to Texas.
Okay.
So he couldn't do it himself. He was looking for someone else to help him, run the tournaments. Jim is more of like a thinker than implementer.
Yep.
And he said, well, can you run the tournaments every week? And maybe we'll do the Maryland States. Maryland States used to be a small tournament. It's been going on for, I don't think everybody knows, it's been going on for over 20 years.
20 years, yeah.
It started at a small bar, and it used to still be in that small bar until when I came back and got involved, seeing Mary and Charles McIntosh, who used to run tournaments as well.
Mm-hmm. And now it's considered one of the biggest tournaments on the East Coast.
It is. Yeah. I'd like to say I'm proud of it.
Yeah.
What the thing is,
I could never miss it every year. Really
I'm glad.
Yep. It gets bigger every year.
Right, exactly.
It gets bigger because everybody that goes has such a great time that they're definitely going again. And then they go home and they bring one other person with them from their scene.
Mm-hmm.
Says, no, I'm definitely going to Maryland again. And that kind of momentum. Comes from the experience.
They're all like, John just puts on a great tournament. It's just so
It's fun. That was my first tournament was in Maryland. That was my first tournament was in Maryland. Oh, absolutely, yeah. So it's,
I was wondering why we weren't getting anything from you.
Yeah.
Okay. Oh, so you missed all the questions?
Yeah. Well,
all your brilliance, all of Chuck's brilliance is not documented.
Well, we can always start it from the top if you like. Just ask the last question one more time.
Which one was it?
We were praising Maryland States how it's really the premier East Coast tournament, and it's so much fun. It's so well run that everybody that goes comes back. They go, I'll see you next year, and then they bring another person with them from their scene, and just every year there's just growth to it and growth to it.
When I go around and talk to the players, they're all like Maryland State's great, and John runs great tournaments.
Right.
It's just you're good at it, John. You should pat yourself on the back.
Thank you. The mindset that I have, when I run my tournament is, not so much like who's going to be there, or worrying about this or worrying about that. The thing I worry about most is making sure everyone has a good time. I try to not have any situation that comes up that deters players, especially new players, from coming back to play.
Right.
Sure. Growing the sport, of course,
Right.
making it attractive to people of all skill levels.
Right.
That's the tough thing. So, Ray, quick question for you: What was the first time you saw a foosball table?
I was like middle school, and like my best friend his dad found a table in the trash and brought it home, and
Found it in the trash.
Yeah, his dad he had a knack for finding stuff, like kind of like usable stuff. He was just, I don't know, he just goes, the thing he did, it was great. And one of the things was a foosball table, and it was down at my buddy Dean's house, and man, he kicked the crap out of me. And then then the table was gone, and then like years and years later, I went over. I had some friends at home. I was away at college, and I had some friends at home, and dude moved into a house, and they had a foosball table there.
Yeah.
And that's when I started like really playing a lot, like with friends all the time. You know, it was a tornado, it was a whirlwind, it was a home model, but at least it was a tornado. And we had, there were, half a dozen, 10 guys at this. It was like a bachelor house,
There you go.
Foosball, a pool, like horseshoes with lights so we could play at night, and just a lot of guys that played, but like no one was a tournament player. Nobody knew about the developed game. They didn't know any of the strategies. There was just a handful of dudes in this house that were just playing foosball all the time. So that's when I really started playing foosball regularly, even though we were just in the basement kind of doing our own thing.
And at one time you discovered that there are people who really know how to play this
game.
Yeah,
like years and years later, I was talking with the other guitarist in my band, and he mentioned that there was a bar near his house that had foosball, and he told me, he said they had like the Pennsylvania State Championships there. And to be honest, when he first said it, I thought, well, state championships at a bar in Warminster, it must not be very good. And like I didn't, and it wasn't until like a couple years later, when my buddies moved in with me, the guy from the old house who had that table, he brought that table back, and I said, my buddy told me there's some foosball tournament or something near here. Let's go check it out. And like we went for the first time, and I did not miss a Monday Walsh's DYP for like 2 years.
Nice.
Like it was there like every week.
Got
like
addicted.
it was immediately.
Yeah.
Ron Olson was the resident master at the time.
Yeah.
And
great player.
He's so willing to teach. He's so when me and my buddy walked in, and we weren't that far from the place, and he said, "You have a table?" We said, "Yeah, we got a tornado, a whirlwind." He was like, boom, jackpot. He's like two guys that live together with a table in their basement. Boom, 2 new players to the scene.
Done.
And he was just so welcoming, and it just really took off from there. And then like from Walsh's, weekly DYP, you go out searching for bigger stuff. And it came a couple months later, everyone was like, hey, there's Maryland States. That was the tournament. And that was, for us, that was our most local tournament. And like everybody goes to Maryland. So it was like, I don't know if we're ready for that. And they were like, well, everybody's going to be there. Just go. It's going to be a great time. Went down Maryland States, first tournament. And like just kind of like how I walked into Walsh's for the first time and walked out of Change, man. I walked out of Maryland for the first time, and like that was it, man. Life was different.
I can remember my first tournament. I mean, it just changes you. You see it from a whole different perspective.
Yeah.
It just makes you want to get better and better in practice, and I loved it.
You have the bug. Once you get the bug.
When you have, the things like within those good tournaments and people leave, and it's like, you want them to leave going, see you next year.
Right.
Yeah.
I think that the equation that I use for it is, games per hour, fun per minute.
Yep.
That's the balance,
That's
like
a
play
equation,
a lot. Play a lot, but fun, it's just finding that right balance where, it's, you really get your binge on overload, and then it's,
so
when's the next one?
Speaking of binge, when you're doing a tournament, let's say like Pennsylvania States or Maryland, I mean, there's a lot more to it than what you're doing, obviously, than the players. They show up and have a great time, but you guys, the promoters, the organizers who are running the thing, I mean, you have to show up, what, a day or two earlier before the tournament starts and stay, what, another day after it's finished? I mean, is that typical?
Yeah.
It's for the average state tournament, 3 or 4 day tournament, it's a week involved in setting up, and then afterwards, the week from Wednesday to Monday, Tuesday.
It's really a lot more than a week, though, isn't it, John? I mean, you're spending like all year planning and talking to people.
Yeah.
I mean,
Promoting.
you're putting a lot of
The
time
work
and
for
effort.
it never stops, but you move in, you'll live at the hotel for about a week for a state tournament.
No doubt.
You live at the hotel 6.
So
5-6 days.
what substances do you recommend to maintain the energy level for that period of time, or is it done organically?
You shouldn't get that from us. We sustain on Miller Lights for 12 hours a day.
Yeah.
So.
That's probably a bad question.
Yeah, that's not a great question.
Check that.
Tony would have been the one to ask. He tries to stay clean.
Sure.
Like Cliff Bars and water, and hydrate himself and get something that's long lasting as far as providing energy.
Do you both participate? Do you actually get into to play during the tournament?
Yeah, yeah, and it's actually people have stated this before. Running and sitting the stage and then coming down to play your match is difficult, but you warm up pretty quickly.
Okay.
I remember when I was doing some promoting, and I really couldn't play because I was too busy thinking about
concentrating.
I mean, back then we were running on paper charts,
Right.
so I mean it was a lot more involved, and I wanted to make sure everything was running right, and I wanted a good experience for the people, and it was tough for me to do both. I couldn't I couldn't think when I was at the table, other than I was thinking about running the tournament instead of playing.
I feel bad for my doubles.
Do you ever get it?
partners.
Do you guys get that
Sometimes,
at all or no?
No, as soon as I come off that stage, I want to
ready to go.
Kill whoever's on the table. So, no,
Hey, that's okay.
No.
I'm the complete
But
opposite.
You're right. You're right. Like what's going on? I know I had this match to call, and I know I benched these people because this other match needs to be played, and that kind of stuff does go through my mind. And then I'm still listening. But I
What's
guess you could
being
say
called?
side of your eye, a side of your ear. Like no, don't call that match. And I do. Like maybe some part of my attention is not completely in the game.
Sure.
So you're not able to tune it all out.
Right, but most of it. Sometimes
You say you're not the same as that, right? What's that?
No, I can't.
You tune it all out?
No, I can't tune any of it out. And I feel
Wait,
bad
who's your
about
partner
it.
this weekend, Ray?
Not many. I don't. Some. I mean, I've had Mary come up to me at Worlds, one time, and she looks at me. It was like Saturday, and she was just like, "Have you played anything yet?" And I go, "I played the Thursday DVP," and she goes, "Honey, you gotta play. You can't just be working because it gets it's I don't know. I can't turn it off. I'm always like listening for the ear, because also if there's a mic screech or something like that, that's also something like that I handle. But I wish I could turn it off. Like again, that's like one of the many things that I want to learn from John. John has a habit of laughing at things that should make you angry. There is no anger, like something that should rage you out. He just looks at it.
That's one of the things we all love about John.
And he laughs at it, and I'm like, dude, teach me, how to do that so I can stop raging. And
There's medication for that.
Things are funny.
Yeah, I can't. My ear catches stuff, but. It is.
You can't please everybody, so let's start there, right?
Oh, you really can't please everybody.
Oh, can you now?
No, you can't.
Okay.
No,
please, even not
at all.
Especially foosball players. I mean,
prima donnas.
Right.
I don't think a lot of people recognize like the 300 things that are going on at one time, and that their match can't be called right now.
Yep.
Well, I've been sitting around for 2 hours. I'm like, yes, I understand you've been sitting around for 2 hours, but your partner or your opponent's partner or your opponent are doing something else right now. So.
Yep, in another match.
Yeah.
There's 300 plus people here. It's it doesn't work that way.
Yeah.
What, by the way, is the largest tournament you've both run? What is the biggest number of people you've dealt with at one time?
Running? I've been to one way back before my hiatus, like 96 Hall of Fame. There were 670 players there.
Wow.
I didn't have any part in running that. But,
Okay.
Ray and I think, in Vegas 2 years ago, 480.
Nice.
How about this year in Vegas?
This year Vegas was like 4 something, but I think a couple of years ago was bigger because of the ICC.
Right.
This year's ICC I think was a little bit less of a turnout.
And the ICC is what, John?
The Intercontinental Cup that ITSF runs. It's kind of like the Stanley Cup. The cup goes home to the country, and
that's a team event, correct?
That is a team event.
We had like one or two worlds ago. I think we had like 5. Like 1 or 2 worlds ago. I think maybe like 2 worlds ago we had.
Yeah, it might have been close to that.
How many tournaments are you guys both involved with, like on a yearly basis?
Most.
As far as working, I'm not playing, just working.
Well, all the majors, Worlds, Hall of Fame,
all the majors,
Nationals. Yeah, those are the 3 majors that Mary runs, and I go.
TKO,
yeah.
So Mary, when you say Mary, who is Mary?
Oh, Mary Moore. Mary Moore is the national promoter. She is the she's the one running. Well, not running, but she's the one that has the tables. She has the software. She has the tour. It's her tour. So
okay.
Yeah,
so she's the main operator of these tours. Gotcha.
Yeah.
And how many years has she been at this?
She's been. Oh my goodness. 36? Right? No, it's 36, I think is what she said.
Wow.
And
Kentucky States goes way back.
Right, right. It goes way back. She was an independent promoter when Valley was running their own tour.
Okay.
Valley had the tour she's running now, but she started as an independent promoter in Kentucky, running Kentucky States.
Interesting.
Which was, I think, aside from Texas, one of the oldest state tournaments.
Yeah.
And they always had huge turnouts for that.
Yeah. At the Continental. Oh. I remember that hotel. I really don't want to remember, but I do.
I think they're throwing the TV off the 5th floor onto the pool. I
wouldn't doubt that has happened.
Okay. A little rock star action going on there. Yeah, absolutely.
Well, they kind of were rock stars. You know, those old players, they kind of were rock stars back then because a lot more of the general public used to play back then.
Right.
So those guys, you know, kind of got that
crew.
Right.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of those guys don't tour anymore, but they're still around. They're still hangers on. They kind of keep in touch.
Yeah.
Right.
Very cool. Very cool. Okay, so we're on that topic. So what do we need to do? How do we get this back to what it was?
You know, this is the discussion that a lot of us have always had, and I can't say that video games were the downfall of foosball, but video games were the downfall of foosball.
I'm hearing this, yeah. More than once, for sure. But video games, of course, have really kind of gone away as far as the arcades are concerned. They're no longer out there. It's more home video, but did that still affect the...
I think the subculture of video games and video game tournaments. You know, it was only a few years ago that I heard there was a $200,000 video game tournament.
Yes.
Right.
And those things happened. I'm like, oh my God.
Yep.
I've been playing foosball. What am I doing?
Right.
But I love the sport.
And it's a time issue, too. I mean, if you're playing 2 hours on a video game every day, you're not putting any time on a foosball player or table or, thinking about foosball at all.
That's only, like, if they don't have a table and they don't have the bug. See, I think video games, I think it's a manageable setback. I think the game still sells itself. I think they could cohabitate.
Yes. You have a good point there.
I think they could cohabitate, and I think there's a lot of similarity between video game players and foosball players because they're both skill games.
Right.
It doesn't matter how tall or short you are when it comes to video games. If you're a guy or a girl, you're fat or skinny, it doesn't matter. It's video games. How good are you with the controller? And foosball's like that.
Yep.
It's all inclusive. And so I think there's a lot of similar things.
Point.
I think you find in foosball, I think you find a lot of video game players. I think you find a lot of musicians.
Sure.
Yeah.
You know, things of that nature where it's, you know, if something that you want to do, you know, you get your own version of it and you go in a room by yourself and practice something over and over for hours and hours until you get better at it, and then you go and compete against somebody against it, or, you know, like in a band you play with somebody, you know, like other you know, musicians. So I think that it's a manageable setback, and just fundamentally there's just not enough tables out there. It's exposure because the game sells itself.
I totally agree with you that foosball players play video games. But
of course,
how do we get the video game players to play foosball?
I think there's one difference that if you could get somebody to play, it would make such a big difference. The difference between video games and foosball, when you're face to face with somebody, it's such a visceral emotion. I don't know.
Sure.
I can't say that it's not in video game tournaments, but it's face to face as opposed to like looking at a screen and pushing buttons. It's your body doing something. It's your mind working
roughly
somewhere.
3 feet away from your opponent. You can see them, and as Nino has intimated to me in the past in his career as a foosball player, has wanted to reach across that table a few times.
I remember Nino back in the day.
I think we all have wanted to reach across the table at one point.
Yeah. Not as much now as it was 20 years ago. But
well, 20 years ago, it was a free-for-all out there.
I remember Dennis Claroni, the first time I ever beat him, trying to pull my arm off, shaking hands. I'm like, oh my God, what's wrong with this guy?
It's a friendly game.
Yeah. Dennis has had that interaction with a few people.
Seriously. Oh, man. No, it's fascinating because of the fact that it's now become more of a golf match. Right, so you don't have the entourage and the cheering and the craziness that used to mark a tournament back in the day.
Right.
How do we get back? I mean, is that something you'd like to see happen, or no?
I think I don't know if it's a golf match. I liken it much more to tennis, even the game itself.
Okay.
Certain people need quiet, like golf, but tennis can be that way too.
Sure.
But as far as the game itself goes, I think it's face-to-face, one-on-one, and you got to break that opponent.
Yep.
You have to break one of their serves. You have to take that ball and score it for yourself.
That's a great analogy, John.
Yes.
Yeah. What were we talking about?
Where are we?
I don't know if we necessarily want to make it louder. I don't. I respect the theater of tennis more than I think I do the way this game used to be. There were some situations, literally, I've heard of bar fights over foosball that used to happen, and I think it was
common back in the day.
Right. And I think it's a better sport. I think the top players right now are good representatives as far as the general public, and it's ready to be presented to someone somewhere.
Yes.
To make it huge.
No doubt.
Hey, Ray. Now, John's been in this for a long time, and you say he's like your mentor. You've only just began.
Mm-hmm.
What's it like just starting out running big tournament? I mean, you're running
your second year, right?
You're running a big tournament now.
One,
I mean,
yeah.
It really is. I mean, to add to a segue into that, Maryland State's, like I said, has been running for over 20 years, but that used to be a $3,000 tournament, and it stayed that way for a long time. And we drew, 120, 130 players in a basement of a bar.
Jeez.
And takes a lot of gusto and a lot of, to have your first state tournament run at a hotel, and Ray's works his butt off, promotes, he's a great ambassador for the sport and for his own tournament. And, I praise him for it. I think he's
we
done
thank
a good
you
job.
both for it.
Yeah, absolutely.
You guys,
You're both a great addition.
Yeah.
I mean, I love both of these tournaments that you run.
Yeah, Pennsylvania is really starting to grow very quickly. It seems.
Yeah.
It's become. I mean, it's not as big as Maryland, certainly, but it's the word is out there. It seems.
It's starting a lot quicker. I mean,
Yeah.
it's not a $3,000 tournament by any means. You're running a $12,000 tournament. That's
Jump
a
in
big
the fire,
undertaking.
right?
Yeah, it was.
Jump in the fire.
So tell us what it's like.
Yeah, well, the first year was 10, and we upped it to 12 this year. It's ambitious, but I have such a great support staff. Because to have, like, I wouldn't do it if I didn't have John and Kristen and Arthur, like at the very least, and then talking just with the table crew guys, like Bill Hayden, Scott Saylor, Cody Byrie. I mean, these guys are, they're great. So that was to kind of be so ambitious and start so big, knowing, number one, that I have a really good staff to depend on, and it would be just kind of like what we normally do, on the road, just scaled down to start, So the staff was a really big thing. Like I said, I certainly wouldn't do it without John and Kristen by my side, absolutely. But then just made a lot of friends the last few years working, and it's a lot of people were just very gracious about their support, and it was just kind of finding the right balance of what could it be, and let's just start there.
It's the team, right? It's the team.
I get
So,
a lot.
so you're not sorry you got into it then?
No, man, not at all. I go another 2 weeks, man. Oh, I love it. Yeah.
He loves the drive. He loves the pressure.
Well, it's a big group, and it's a family. Everybody's a family.
Yeah.
It is. It was. I saw like a little spot on the schedule, and geographically, it kind of works with there's, aside from just like the Pennsylvania and New Jersey players. I mean, Maryland and New York. I mean, just top, one on top of me, one below me. There was just a really great starting point.
Yep.
With really great scenes, and it's it's a doable, tournament. And there's a little spot on the schedule, so I just kind of wedge another state tournament in on the tour. Like there was a little spot, so I took it. And
speaking of that,
we're glad you did.
Speaking of that, Ray actually has done all the right things to kind of start his own tournament. I remember 3 years ago, he was interested in like how things were done.
Mm-hmm.
He actually offered up his services free of charge to help run. I think it was TKO. It was TKO.
I wanted to work.
I want to come and work for you. I don't want anything for it. I want to see how this goes, and I want to learn how to do these things. And he created his own path to making this. A lot of people have come up to me over the past few years, like, I'd like to run a tournament. I'd like to do this. I'd like to do that. What's involved? And I don't even know where to start with these.
Right.
Explaining this.
Sure.
Well, you guys, you kind of understand from what I've put out there, like what's involved, but it's not easy. It's really not.
Mm-hmm. No, it's stressful. And
logistically,
you always have foosball players tugging you from all different sizes, and you got to have thick skin. I mean, but you do a great job. I mean, what is it about the way you handle all that pressure and the different people coming at you?
Believe me, sometimes on the inside, my I think my head's going to explode. But you take a deep breath and you get back on to the idea that they're people. You don't want somebody to have their feelings hurt over something stupid. So you say to yourself, let me be as accommodating as I can and do whatever I can to make this person enjoy their weekend here, because that's what they do. They come here to enjoy themselves.
Yeah,
You're right.
Yeah.
So we have a guy here in our staff at Foosball Radio whose son is a rising star. I mean, I'm still standing on a stool, on one side of the table. But on behalf of Nino, DiJohn, how do we get more kids involved in this? What is the plan? Anything that you thought about?
I think with with how young Sam is, that's being the son of a pro and a hell of a player. Nino's a strong player. I mean, all the guys in 518 are good, but I mean, when your dad's a pro, you can get started that young. But for who are the first generation foosers, I think like middle school is about the best age to start, and just get them tables. Just get them at the table.
Right.
Get them playing. Because again, the game sells itself. There are a lot of people in this country of all different ages who would be who are foos junkies just like us, but they don't know it yet because they haven't had their first hit.
Right.
And they're out there and they're waiting.
Yep.
And I mean, you see it.
It's
What's
potential.
Coming up, through the lower ranks, like you hear the same thing from people. All the new players, they say, I had no idea this even existed. And that's
this is why we're doing.
Yeah, and that's when they're hooked.
We're trying to get the word out. I mean, and
I think back in the 70s when foosball was so large, they had many venues. There were actually foos halls in Colorado.
Right.
Bowling alleys used to have foosball tables. Rec centers always had.
They
foosball
were everywhere.
Tables. They were everywhere. Now the only place you can find them are in bars.
Right.
And the idea that you cannot get a kid into a bar to play a tournament on Saturday night at 9:00 is a big, it's a roadblock.
I don't know about your locale, but I mean, they're not even into bars where we are. I mean, there's like 2 or 3 bars within a 30-mile radius of us that have foosball tables.
Well, I think there's that missing generation, right? Like when the bottom fell out with the video games.
Sure.
There, it was in, the 90s. It was later is when you really, really felt that, because there were no Sam DiJohns, right? There were no.
Yep.
There was no generation to replenish, and it was a delayed, I think, effect. And so just mathematically, the people that were left who played foosball were just old enough to. There were no more arcades, so where do people that age go? They go to bars.
Right.
That's your arcade when you're an adult. You go to the bar, and that's just where they went, And
I think we're lucky to have people like players like Tony and Billy, who it was through their parents.
Yeah,
just like Nino.
Yep.
Yeah, they would never have gotten into it. They would have never known about it, and they came up. Their coming of age was early 2000s. You know, Tony, I think, won his first major 2004, 2003.
I think you're right. Yeah. No, it's astounding because the fact of the matter is it's not generally available for kids. And so how do we, as far as tournament or promoting this sport, how do we change that?
One of our goals is to help get more tables like in schools and stuff like that. I mean, I don't really necessarily have all the answers there. I mean, do you guys have any clue how we can do this? I mean,
I think there needs to be someone who has the time and the willingness to go and start an after-school program somewhere.
Right.
There has to be a mentor.
approach.
I agree with you 100%.
Right.
If you just put a table in a school, it's not going to happen because they don't understand the rules. They don't understand how to play. So if they need a mentor, they need somebody that can go in and once a week or once every 2 weeks and show them how to play.
Yeah,
the game.
I mean,
They
you
have
got
to
to be
have
selective.
structure. There has to be a structure
In the
to it.
beginning, to start, you gotta lead with your strengths when you start, and to look at schools and to put programs in. I think you need to prioritize. People who are developed players, either active or non, but people who really know how to play, and people that are involved and can be at a school to do that. Like that's where the energy needs to be first, because it's not, you can't teach a gym teacher how to teach them how to play foosball.
True that.
I mean, it's
they got to
not
be
like
an enthusiast first.
yeah, it's
somebody
not
has
like
to
the
know.
band teacher
Right.
that can play like all of the curriculum on every
Right.
wind instrument, like just well enough to teach. It's not like that.
Hey,
so
man,
What do you guys think of foosball being a curriculum in schools?
Yeah. I just got hired as a foosball coach, man. I'm digging
No,
it.
not necessarily.
no,
but
I think it needs to be a club. I think it needs to
Club?
be like chess club,
Yeah.
science club.
Yeah.
Sure.
I think that's
so an after-school program or something
Yeah.
to that extent.
Yeah.
That sounds like a good idea.
Yeah.
yeah.
So in Europe, I mean, you go to places like Germany, and there are training centers in a lot of the cities there.
200
Yeah,
plus
it's awesome.
kids.
Yeah, training centers where
Yeah.
you go in, and that's like it's. I went to a place in Hanover a few years ago. My sister lives there, and I played a DYP in a training center, and it was 14 tables. People.
I have
tables at a
something.
DYP.
I have something funny to add to this.
I was astounded. Now, half the people spoke English, which was good, but I had a blast.
Yeah.
€3 to play, and they had a different system, of course, but they had a training center, and it had every kind of table you can think of, including a tornado, which they seem to they were depending upon me to show them more about it, but. Their of course their thing is the lion or the Leonhardt, I think it is. But anyway,
that's a fun table.
Yeah.
I think whether it's by design or just by accident, that the entire world loves soccer, loves football.
Right.
Yeah,
And this
absolutely.
country does not. And apparently the entire world, most of Europe, loves foosball.
Sure.
Which
because
is,
of that.
the soccer can't take off. I don't know why.
Yeah.
It's just not. I don't know if it's in the mindset of the American population that it's not something that they're interested in.
It's we have football.
Yeah.
And that's
American football.
We have American
Right.
football, and that's like soccer's just never going to make it here because we have American
and it's
football.
odd that foosball doesn't take off.
Soccer,
Right, but
soccer took a big uptick when the World Cup was here. When America is in it, and
That's just the holiday season. It doesn't.
No, I know.
Where is it now?
Yeah.
Where is it now? Go to these people, and say, what's your closest Major League Soccer team? Who are they? They don't know, right? But but like to that point though, I think that this style, and specifically the tornado style of play, I think is closer to American football than it is to traditional soccer.
Okay.
Because it's this style, it's a
aggressive.
possession and a power game, and it's a
aggressive.
control game, So it's kind of like football in the sense of like, I have the ball, I'm going to make a decision, I'm going to execute a play, I'm going to move up the field, I still have the ball. I'm going to execute something else by way of strategy. And you go up the field, I'm going to see, I'm looking, you got only 3, you're in the red zone now, I try to have a pull shot on a Bonzini, it's like all over the place, but like, there's
Why
no.
does it always come back to the Bonzini?
The Bonzini! Because it's the other end, it's the far other end. But I think the American style of foosing, specifically on a tornado table, I think it's closer to American football. It's sort of that set and go, set
That's a
and
pretty
go.
good analogy. I never really heard that, but
great.
I can see where you're trying to inflict pain on the other person.
Yeah,
and one way or another. Yeah.
You're looking for their weaknesses.
Mental pain.
Our table,
pain.
compared to our table compared to other tables in the history of tables, it's kind of like what we did. Like
It's
we
a
took
brute.
we took a little bit of soccer and we took a little bit of rugby and. Here's American football, and with our table, we're like, well, now we're gonna put 3 guys in the back. We're gonna flatten the surface, with these stupid ramps, Although, every time, something scores off, the 3-man on the goalie, it's like, that's why people play Warrior. I get it now, but
I love
still,
the 3-man.
We even kind of have, altered it a little bit to our specifications, like how we created football from other people's sports, and
from rugby and all the others.
We've created our table and our style with it, and being us working these big tournaments, international. We can ask some of these players. I ask them sometimes, foreign players come over for Vegas or for Worlds.
Sure.
I ask them, say, what's your favorite table? And quite a few of them say. Tornado, they have Germans and French players and stuff, and they've been like,
I've heard that. They'll say Tornado's the best, but that's not the table they play on even most of the time.
Right. Well, there's not a lot over there, it's hard to get over there, but they like it because you can do anything on it, and you can play any kind of, really any style of game.
The control is much higher,
Yeah, you can play
the
any
table
style of game
itself
on it.
is built in a way that it doesn't degrade like some other tables do. I mean, the surface doesn't warp, and the guys, the rods stay straight, and
you could play speed, you could play power, you could any kind of a game, But I think to attach this, like how in Europe how they have club systems that are attached to their soccer teams. I think just forget about Major League Soccer because it's just not going to happen in this country. We need to go to the NFL, because and it is closer to American football. Go to the NFL.
Interesting. I think that perspective, especially coming from somebody like yourself who's involved with this on a tournament basis, makes a lot of sense. So speaking of which, and this is something we've been asking everybody we've spoken to. First of all, we want to thank you for joining us for Foosball Radio. We are the ultimate foosball podcast, if you will. We want to know from you guys, how can we make this a better thing for you? And what would you like to hear more of when it comes to a podcast about foosball?
Different perspectives on people. Maybe.
Okay.
You do always get your masters in and have their understanding of what people might want to hear from
their
them.
philosophies.
But, it's hard to get your average foosball player's opinion.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't have a good answer. I guess.
Is there something we can help you with when it comes to promoting your tournaments?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, the more word that gets out, the better it is.
Okay.
Well, that's why we're doing it. Get the word out there.
Yeah, I think tables need to be in public,
Yep.
And you need to find ways to start some kind of a weekly thing somewhere. I'm originally from South Jersey, and I moved to PA some years back, and PA is where I really started playing. But in South Jersey is where all my friends were back in the day. When we were in the basement and didn't know any rules or anything like that, but just played all the time. And there was nothing in New Jersey until a year ago. I mean, you'd be hard pressed to really find a tornado table anywhere in the state.
Huh.
There was certainly no kind of tournament or organization or anything at all. And I went into Fat Albert's Billiards in Somerdale on the Whitehorse Pike, and I went looking for locations to start some kind of a beginner weekly tournament. And sold him on the idea. It's a really good pool room, and I started explaining to him about foosball, and he got it, because he knows from pool tour. He was like, "Oh, okay, so you kind of do the same thing with foos," and he just kind of trusted my passion and was like, all right, well, let me know, So he bought 2 tables from PA last year, and I brought him over like 2 days after the tournament. I went over, set him up, and we've been having a beginner-only tournament, every Wednesday for the last year now. And there's a bunch of those guys are here. And I
how many are showing up on a regular basis?
We get 6 to 8 beginners out of a possible pool of 15 or so.
Yeah, nice.
Consistently weekly
Now,
basis.
If somebody out there was living in an area like that, and there wasn't any foosball, what would you recommend that they do?
You got to find somewhere public. You got to find a place to put in tables, and that means hitting the pavement and talking to businesses and picking your location. Like when I was looking for places to put the tables, I wasn't so much looking at bars per se. I was looking at billiard halls and bowling alleys, gamery type places. Certainly, preferably someplace that wouldn't be age restricted.
Sure.
But I think you gotta. First try and sell the owner on getting tables, because they're coin-operated tables.
Right.
And realistically, it's not too much of a cost to buy a couple of tables. It's some thousands, and that is some thousands. But when you're racking, you can rack them $1 a game.
Sure.
And it's a one-time cost, really. It's not adding anything to like their electric bill or anything.
It's not like they're just going to get the quarter revenue either. If people are coming in, they're going to be buying drinks
when
and
you
food.
Go to places with alcohol, it's it's like, hey, look, I can get you. It's a slow weeknight, I think is always a good spot too, because if you want to build something, everybody has something to do on Friday and Saturday. Our Walsh is in DYP in Pennsylvania on Mondays, it's on Mondays. And the one in Jersey for the beginners is on Wednesdays, because most people can get out of the house by like 7 and make it to the 8 o'clock tournament. And if they're home by like midnight, that's like doable in a work week,
Sure.
And it's got to be there every single week. It can't be
Consistent.
like, every other Tuesday we have this tournament. No, you got to find a couple people that are just sick enough to be there every week, because it has to always be
Nino.
there. Yeah. In public, get a couple of tables and, work things out. If you can't
Exposure.
get and,
That's it.
and that's in just a piece at a time. And if there's nothing in that area, then you know what that means? That means you have beginners. So make a beginner tournament. That's why I did New Jersey.
They become amateurs, and then they become rookies, and they become experts.
Right.
Yeah.
But you can't, you got to keep it balanced. There's a reason why we have ranked events in this game, because of the it's got a shallow learning curve.
Well, when I joined the 518 in 2011, I hadn't played in 30 years. I played in the 70s on Bonzini, and I show up, these guys are playing Tornado, and they're phenomenal players, and I got my butt kicked on a regular basis. So it took me, in fact, there was a few moments where I said, what am I doing this for? But then, because these guys are such great teachers, I got the hook, got the disease. And that's, I guess there has to be some of that too, right? You have to have people that are willing to just say, yeah, okay, we get you're a beginner. We're going to play with you regardless. And not everybody followed that rule, but you got to have that.
They have, they got freshman, JV, and varsity for a reason.
Yeah.
It's about development,
Sure.
And it's about competition. You need to certainly play people that are better than you to see what things look like to speed.
Sure.
What it's supposed to look like when you're good at it. But then, you also need people that, you could compete with and kind of nudge each other, like kind of go back and forth on who beats
together.
who kind of a thing.
Right,
And you start
Gives you the
pushing each
competitive
other.
edge.
You need both.
I
That's
know
all
I'm
there
not
is
going to
it.
compete with Tony Spearman,
Right.
but I can compete with Nino. Say,
Right.
Sure. I if I didn't have that, like you say, I'd probably just quit.
You get something from both, Yeah.
Yeah, no, it's no doubt.
It gets the endorphins flowing.
Yeah, you got that right. There's something about the adrenaline that comes into play with this. It's like a drug. You gotta have it every time. You get that moment where you feel like it's just from the stomach up. You're just like ready. I got to do this, and I got to I'm gonna kill this guy across the table. But yeah, I love that feeling. So first of all, again, I want to thank you both for being here. I know you took some time out from this weekend's events to sit down and do this for a change instead of running the tournament. Thank you so much for John, first of all. Thank you for showing up and doing what you do with the tournament. Fantastic job this weekend.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah, and Ray, the same deal. Thanks for doing this, and thanks for joining us for Foosball Radio. The door is open at all times, and we're planning on being at as many tournaments this coming year in 2019 as we can. What do you think would be the next best one to go to?
This year at 2018 or
2019.
Please come to Maryland.
Okay, yeah.
Okay.
Oh, yeah.
We're definitely going to be at Maryland and Pennsylvania. And
no doubt.
I recommend highly. I mean, everybody knows about Maryland, but Pennsylvania is fairly new. They're getting the same product. It's a great tournament. I mean, you're doing a great job, Ray.
Thank you.
I mean, and more people should come to this because it's a good time.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, just following his lead and the things that I learned. It's kind of like, well, maybe make a little mini Maryland. We'll start from there.
Cool.
It's all heading in the right direction.
Maryland, PA, and come to all those. And thank you, very much for having us.
Sure, and let's talk again.
Great. It's a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Excellent. Thank you.
Our sincere thanks to John Lee and Ray Schneider for taking the time to give such a great interview at the 2018 Pennsylvania States Championships. Let's return again to the fall of 2018 as we go backstage at the 518 Foosball Smashdown in Clifton Park, New York. The next Foosball Radio Lost interview features pro player and foosball promoter Greg Mendel.
Welcome back. It's Foosball Radio. Hey there, I'm Tom Robinson, and we are doing a whole episode on promoting the foosball sport. And I'm very lucky in so many ways to have been backstage for the latest, greatest upstate New York foosball tournament. It's called the Turkey Open in Clifton Park, New York. We're about 43 people showed up, and we are backstage. We got a chance to grab one of the top players who appeared in our Turkey Open. His name is Greg Mendel, and for perhaps if you tuned into Foosball Radio for the first time, I know we've mentioned Greg's name a few times, but Greg has been in the foosball industry for, shall we say, decades. Not just as a player. Now, Greg, first of all, welcome to Foosball Radio.
Thanks, Tom.
So, Greg, what is your current status as a player?
My current status is a pro.
Pro, gotcha. Yep. So pro level. And how many years have you been a pro?
I don't even know. I'd probably 15, 18. We're 18, so probably close to. Oh, this is embarrassing. I never even thought about when I turned pro. It's been a while.
Yes, well, that's what happens after you've been in the business for 40 years.
Yeah, a long time, since 1984.
Since 1984, and when you got into foosball for the very first time, was it something that somebody turned you on to, or what was the first time you saw a foosball table?
That was when I was in 10th grade.
10th grade, yeah.
Yeah, I had every other morning free, so I went over to my local deli and hung out there, had donuts or whatever.
Gotcha.
But they ended up putting in a foosball table, and I started playing around with it. I thought I was pretty good, but I was terrible. I was terrible. I had one little push shot, and I got it once every 4 matches.
Okay.
But I played on that, there in the game room, and I actually started a huge trend. Within about 3 weeks or 4 weeks, there was just a line of kids leaving the school, going 3 blocks to play at the deli.
At the deli?
At the deli.
So
up in Gilderland Center.
And there was one table.
There was one table. It grew real fast. Within 2 weeks, they had 6 tables.
Really?
And
So the people that ran the deli realized, oh my goodness, we're onto something here.
Right. And they actually, I think they bought next door and opened that up as a full game room.
Wow.
And,
okay.
Yeah. So that was.
And what kind of table did they have to start with?
I believe they were TS tables.
TS
tables? Maybe $250,000 ones. I honestly can't remember. It was so far back.
Tournament soccer.
Tournament soccer.
And so 1984. Now, have you had at that point? Of course, you had no idea you were going to end up as a tournament player. Was that something you had in mind early on, or what?
No, I mean, when I was in high school, it was only 76.
Yeah. Okay.
So I played in high school for probably a year, and I got to my first. They had a first tournament there. And on Friday, as a rookie, I went in and stayed after school, and I practiced all afternoon.
Okay.
Well, I couldn't even see. My eyes were bleeding by the time the tournament started. And I had partnered up with one of my friends, and we got beat by 2 girls first round, and we just decided to quit playing.
In the 1970s, or thereabouts,
76,
76, you were getting beat by the women.
Oh, yeah.
Love that.
We were terrible, but we didn't know any better.
And why did you keep coming back even after that?
Well, I actually didn't. I quit after that. I mean, I didn't play for about a year and a half, 2 years, until I graduated high school, and then I started playing in my local bar that I was going out to.
Got it. Okay.
And
Drinking age and
Yep. And I quickly escalated to the best in my bar.
Yeah.
And then I met a player, Harvey Young, and he started teaching me how to do a brush pass and a pull shot.
Okay.
And I was still stubborn, so I didn't learn the pull shot. And I kept playing goalie, and that was probably 81 that I met him, 82.
No kidding.
Yeah, and then we played and started having tournaments at a place called Skyway Bowl.
Skyway Bowl is, now, what town are we talking about here? Is
Scotia.
This Scotia, yeah.
Glenville.
Scotia, New York? Okay.
Yep.
And so at the bowling alley, were there, how many tables did they typically have there?
They only had 2 tables.
Oh.
And they paid a guy $50 every week to run our tournament.
Really?
And so we all got together and said, let's kick him out and put the $50 in the pot and run it ourselves.
Like it.
Right.
So enterprising right from the beginning.
Yep. So there was about 5 or 6 players with me. And it didn't take long after that when we said, let's kick the tables out and buy our own. And we started Empire State Table Soccer Club.
A club. Now, Empire State Table Soccer. So this was something you created with Harvey Young.
Harvey Young was our marketing mastermind. And he did really good. I mean, he put a lot of thought into it, and he's like, we can only get as big as our name.
Okay,
so he wanted to make sure that we could at least be as big as our state.
Sure. Love that.
Yep.
That's a great idea.
So he was definitely instrumental, and I think, definitely pushed our club to the limit.
So with the club, let's say in the first year or so, how many players were you talking about for the average tournament?
We were getting 10, 15 teams.
Okay, nice, yeah.
And it was
30
funny.
people?
Yeah, and the top 5 was myself and my brother, Harvey Young, I think Ray Weeks, Brad Whitaker, I can remember all their names. But
all those guys.
The crazy thing was we all shot a different shot.
Interesting.
And so, like, one of them was a push kick, one was a pull kick, one was a push shot, and then a pull shot. I mean, I was like, so all of our players got known pretty good. And then when we went to, like, Binghamton for a tournament, we would kick all their butts because we had, like, every shot down, so they couldn't, no matter what they shot, we could block it because we had it in our weakness.
Interesting. So Binghamton, how often do you go to places like Binghamton to compete?
Now or then?
Back in those days.
Back in those days, we probably win it once every 4 months or so.
Okay, yeah.
So after the first time of taking first, second, and third in rookie events, we weren't allowed to play rookie anymore.
Okay, they bumped you up to the next level. So.
Right. I think it was expert then or semi-pro or something. But
so by the mid-'80s, you were getting into the point where you were competing and winning as far as tournaments are concerned.
Well, we don't like to think we're winning. I can't,
Okay.
But pretty much in 1984 is when I was the only one of our friends that had a credit card. So I bought the first tables in there.
Yeah.
Dynamos. So that's what we started putting out. And it kind of put me in charge because I own the tables, and they were helping us. So amongst us all, we started looking for locations, and that's how Empire State Table Soccer vending grew. And eventually they all dropped off one by one, and I was stuck with all the tables and running tournaments.
So you were doing it on your own?
Pretty much at the end, yeah.
So as far as those days are concerned, what was the largest tournament you actually ran?
I think it was about a 10-grander, and I didn't want to go any bigger because I was trying to focus on numbers and figure out ways to get more people involved, and I didn't believe it was huge money.
Sure.
I mean, one of the main things Harvey said that I violated, and every promoter does, is never put the amount of money on the flyer.
Got it.
It's not supposed to be a $10,000 tournament. You just put the money on there because eventually, as the player base influx, grows and shrinks and grows,
sure,
that money isn't good when it starts shrinking.
Yep.
It puts a negative effect on how the sport's going.
Like, hey, last year was 10,000, now it's 5. What's going on? Yeah,
exactly.
I got you.
So I mean, if we could turn it around, I would have never done that.
Okay.
Anyways.
So this went on for some time as far as promoting sport?
1984, and I was actually a machinist at the time, and then in 1987 I quit being a machinist to then full time.
Really?
We had that many locations and things were going so good.
Nice.
Yep.
It's interesting how, I've talked to a lot of other folks who have come up through the 70s and 80s of foosball, especially in the upstate capital region. They were saying that, hey, we'd get 30 people out for a DYP on a Friday night.
Yep.
And sometimes there'd be more than one DYP in a week, and there'd be 30 people that would show up, which just to me, it just seems like that's astounding. That's really amazing.
And the peak, because our core group kept growing, and when our core group kept growing, they would all keep bringing more people into the tournaments. I mean, we had Revere Lanes in Schenectady, and that was our best, probably one of our best turnouts. We used to get 25 to 30 teams there every week.
Sure.
And it was rocking. We had tables out by the lanes. We had tables in our lounge, and we needed every single one of them.
Interesting.
And that was a lot of fun. If you watch, like Nino and Chuck, that's where they both started playing.
Our
Nino
co-hosts here on Foosball Radio, I know those guys.
That's where Nino was coming to Revere. That's where he first saw foosball.
Right,
and played it. So, like I say, there's pretty much every player in the Northeast. They all stem from somewhere in the promotions that we ran all the time.
Yes. Well, you as an individual, I know that you've always been very active in teaching other players how to get better. I know I'm one of them. I'm still the oldest rookie on the planet, but it's amazing how I've noticed you have worked with a lot of people to get their games better. Is that something you take a great deal of pleasure in?
Yes, it is, definitely.
Okay.
I love to watch people take what I say and use it and then show me how it works.
Right.
And then personally, I can't do it myself.
But you are a taskmaster. There's no doubt about that.
Yes.
Here's the thing. Once people start to see improvement in their game, they get more addicted to the game. So you as a promoter, that certainly makes a great deal of sense. The more promotion, of course, the more teaching, it all comes together and it benefits everybody.
And one of the core reasons behind my teaching in the beginning, excuse me, was that I believed that the only way I could get better is by getting the people around me better.
Yes.
So I would go out on tour and pick Todd Lafredo's and anybody else's brain I could and learn stuff from, and then bring it back and show my locals how to do it after.
Okay.
Of course, only after I perfected it and could do it well.
I see. Yeah. Understood. Now, when did you really start to actively tour within the U.S., let's say?
Well, that was 84. 84 was my very first Worlds. And
yes.
I went and played with Harvey Young, and we made the cover of the Table Talk.
Nice.
Can't see me because my head's down saying, Harvey, please score.
Well, so how did you do? Did you do, as far as how did you place in the standings?
I'm not sure exactly where we placed in the standings, but I just know that was a pivotal point for me because I watched Harvey was training me, and then I saw what he was telling me to do. I watched it work. I watched it work against Tony Bacon and Don Chalfo, the reigning world champions. Wow. We beat them 5-1, 5-2, and then we're in the third game 3-0.
No kidding.
Harvey started to over-execute on his pole. At that time, we didn't know what he was doing. He's like all of a sudden he couldn't shoot. He kept stubbing the ball. But up until then, it took probably an hour for Tony to figure out to come back. He started shooting pin shots and everything in the world on me because I could block a pole pretty good.
Yep.
And Harvey wasn't letting him have the ball, But we got tired of watching Harvey pull over and stub. So that's why we got in the front of the Table Talk. Is they were actually taking a picture of Tony Bacon and Don Chalfo.
Gotcha.
We happened to be playing against them.
Well, it's very nice of you to be honest about that. Yeah,
I know.
Appreciate that. A lot of witnesses. I guess that has a lot to do with it. So give me an idea. I know, this has been a long, long time that you've been at this. So let's take it to present day. If we compare to those days when you were touring, how is it different these days? Because I know you're still out there doing this.
How is it different? There's so many different angles to answer that question.
Sure.
I'm going to say the tour players are different, and it's because, from 84 on, they had a Players Association develop, but everybody wanted to get back to the TS days. We're all trying to figure out how to get $1 million tournament going back again.
Yes, exactly.
And that has killed us. It's hindered every effort, I think. That's my opinion. It's hindered everything we've done to help the sport grow. Nobody would spend time getting into schools and really mentoring kids.
Yes.
And now Foosball Clubs USA is on board, and I'm just like 100%, whatever I can do to help them, I do, because John O'Brien is making great strides, and Mark Drolette.
And he mentioned your name a couple of times when we were talking to John and Mark. Both mentioned your name as someone who provided tables and got things going.
Yep.
So that's what. No, you're still active with these guys? Do you still help them out?
I try. My job has me traveling all over the country, though, so I haven't been standing in one place for long. And so I, for whatever help I can give them, I try. But it's
understood. No, so it seems to me, and we've talked to these guys at length about how other school districts can get into this and how they talk their administrators, superintendents, principals, this kind of thing, into just bringing a table into the school and see how things change. But I guess the proviso here is, first of all, you got to have somebody like yourself providing a table.
And John O'Brien and Mark Rudd are doing a great job finding tables. I mean, you can find them and get them loaned or whatnot. I mean, I loaned them to Mark Drolette schools, and then when they made the choice to buy, then they of course bought the tables they had. So I just took a year to get paid.
Yeah. Okay.
But I mean, it's far worth the value. I mean, if I could afford to buy more tables to do it, I would.
Sure. Well, look how we see here in upstate New York, we see Mark Drolette shows up with a busload of kids, oftentimes for our tournaments.
Yep.
Same with John O'Brien comes over with his kids, and it's really expanded our tournaments here in Albany. And these guys are from other parts of the state.
Right.
So it's affected everybody.
Oh, yeah, and it will. And I mean, the best thing about getting a school involved is it's very hard to get into them. But at the same time, it's very hard to get kicked out once you are in. If you're doing it right. If you're doing it right and they get sold, you're not going to get kicked back out.
Right.
So,
and you need at least a teacher or two on the staff who are willing to show the kids how to do their, get their stuff together and play right, play by the rules, this kind of thing.
Maybe just to monitor and make sure that it's treated as a privilege and not a right or something. They can't sit there and just play because they want to.
Yeah.
If they have a bad attitude, they should be kicked off the tables or stop from playing until they can straighten it out.
Now, I know Mark had mentioned that in his school, it's got to the point where other teachers are now using foosball as a, shall we say, as a weapon, or as a if you're misbehaving, you're not going to get a chance to play foosball today.
Right.
And it works, because the kids really, really, really want to play. So if we can grow the sport from that level, obviously.
Mm-hmm.
Now, the other thing that we also struggle with when it comes to promoting the sport, obviously, is those individual clubs across the country. Now, every club seems to have its own method for bringing people into, let's say, like a Trick Shots in upstate New York that has tables. I guess, first of all, you have to have an owner of the venue who believes in the foosball sport, which Tim, who owns Trick Shots, is been a huge supporter of the sport.
Yep.
How difficult is that out there? Are you seeing a lot of other places in your travels that are like this?
Not exactly like this, because in other places, like right now I'm in Milwaukee, and they have a place called the Q Club that they play.
Okay.
The Q Club did buy their own tables, I guess that is pretty close to the same as Trick Shot too.
Yeah.
I was thinking at first they had the vendor in there with them. But they do. The players totally maintain the tables.
Nice.
They put the tables aside every week and then pull out two and put them under lights. And the players have bought their own lights and to put them on the tables. And they're running leagues now. They made me a sub. I'm like, I'm not even there.
Yeah.
But
so that's another way to catch people's attention and get them involved. Step in and just try and play and get addicted, ultimately.
And I think that's the other part is Milwaukee also has a very strong core group. Greg Rushing and Jeff Kimmerling.
Gotcha.
I think they're the two core guys that help most of the time, but there's a few other ones that do a lot of the work also.
Yeah.
But you need that core group of guys that's willing to step up and run the league and do the table maintenance and get there early.
It's a lot of work.
It is a lot of work, and it's thankless work.
Yeah. And, foosball players are gracious and very kind, mostly. Although there are times when things get a little, testy.
Uh-huh.
I'll grant you that. But mostly, I think they're grateful for a good tournament, and people, enjoy it. So when you're in your travels out there, what part of the country now to you has got the best scene going on?
Well, I can't even say that with personal experience. I just know that like Colorado has a rocking scene.
Yes.
Texas, of course, still is going pretty good down there.
Okay.
Florida has got the best one. I mean, it's almost probably a tie between Colorado and Florida. They both have a high level of players there.
Yes, and some
have
real
good
pros.
turnouts. Oh yeah, yep. World champions in both areas.
Yep. Yep.
And they all participate. So that's what makes it, very desirable to go there and play in either one of those locations.
Because you get to play against the best.
Right.
Yeah, that makes a huge difference, especially if you're really solidly into this. So, okay, now the nitty-gritty here. What I really want to know from you is, how do we improve tournaments? How do we make it so more people come out to tournaments? Because I know attendance is down all over.
I don't know if that's true or not. It's okay. There's probably another little resurgence bubble happening right now. Even.
Okay, gotcha.
But I think we need to take a step backwards. I think it's very painful, and most of the players aren't going to want to hear this or do it.
Okay.
But I think we need to take a step backwards and literally shrink the tournaments so they're done in a day or two. Open doubles, open singles, and that's it. Maybe amateur doubles and amateur singles.
Reduce the number of events.
The number of events, the number of classes. I mean, if you're a pro and you're winning money, then you're a pro. If you're an amateur, you don't want to play for money, then you're an amateur.
Right.
But I think learning from, I've been over to Germany and Italy and watching the European player base.
What they do, yeah.
And one of the things, and after talking with a bunch of the Europeans, I know that they'll get 400-600 players to their P4P tournaments and things.
Right.
But the key is that they don't pay anything. They pay $20 maybe, whatever the euros are in exchange. But they pay like $20 for a whole weekend of foosball. They know they're not going to beat their top players, but they all go for the fun and the competition. And I think that's where we have to try and go.
It seems more energetic, I guess is the word, because I know some people have mentioned, Nino DiJohn, who took the kids over, Sammy and Hannah, for Team USA on the German competition. He said, the place was a madhouse. There was bleachers, and everybody's wearing their team shirts, and they're cheering for everybody, and
it was so awesome over there. I mean, think of it this way: we have a tour stop; it's all in one room.
Yes.
These guys had 8 tour stops going at once. And
wow.
I mean, 8 different rooms, the seniors all in one, women in another, juniors in another, open in another, and with a huge, and over there, they had 10,000 players come to watch.
Wow.
Just to watch. We can't even get our rookies to watch the open doubles finals.
Yes.
Yes. What do you get, 20, 30 people on stage, to watch the finals matches.
And cheering for their favorite team.
Right.
Yeah.
But, and that's what else I was going to say. Because we have been so programmed, let's say. Let me say where I was before I go this way.
Okay.
I used to be tornado or die. I used to be, I'm not playing unless there's money. Hardcore. That's it. That's the only table. I don't want to touch another table. It's stupid to play another table. And I'm not going to play unless I'm playing for money, because I'm not going to waste my time.
Okay.
Right? And that's because we're going on tour and you can try for the money.
Yeah.
Well, that's terrible. In general.
Yeah.
Over in Europe, one of the main things they have, is pride.
Yes.
They play for pride. They have their club. They play to be the best in their club. They want their club to be the best.
Yes.
They don't care about the money. It's a sport. It's a hobby.
Right.
But then what do you get out of that is numbers, right? You get large numbers. So if we could take a step back and maybe, I'm going to say Mary Moore, because she's director of the tour and she's got to be the leader of this, is to encourage somehow to get the clubs playing and be the best club and have people want to be the best in that club, and not necessarily, if you got 10 guys on a team in a club, how much can you pay for first place and have any of them give a crap?
Right.
You could have 10,000, but so you'll win $1,000. It's not even going to pay for the trip, right?
It can't be about the money.
So it can't be about the money.
Yeah.
It really can't, and it hurts. It hurts because, how many players? We got 100,000 players or whatever that played in the TS days with the $1 Million Tour.
100,000 players.
Probably over the life of it, right? Over 5 or 6 years or whatever.
That's amazing.
There was a lot of players.
Yeah.
And they're all brainwashed. They wouldn't come out and play for nothing.
Mm-hmm.
Now, because once you get a taste of playing for money, the rest seems like what for.
Yeah. That's
right?
another addicting aspect of the game.
Yeah.
When you toss money in there.
Yep.
Yeah. No, I think I get what you're saying, because Europe, of course, they look at it as more of a point of pride, like say, supporting their favorite soccer team, or they call it football.
Right.
But their favorite soccer team, each town is so engrossed in their own soccer squad, and they go out and they get into fights about this. I mean,
right.
They have riots.
They have riots in their stadiums.
Yes. I mean, I don't expect that for foosball, but hey, it's still, that's what we need. That's what's missing here.
It is missing huge. I mean, and we're starting to have pockets of clubs forming. Like that's what we're trying to do with the 518, and that's what Milwaukee has got a good club going. They don't have a name for it yet.
Yeah. Okay.
But I'm saying we need to develop and try and get a club format going in this country somehow, so people have something to play for.
Yes.
Besides the cash. I mean, you still can have a cash tour.
And be club versus club.
Right.
Even at a long distance, maybe perhaps at the end of the year coming together for a tournament in a specific place. But yeah, I mean, you could do with points or whatever it is.
You can have regionals for your club. You can have the best club in your city goes on to the regionals and go up, just like they do in schools and everything else.
Sure.
So that is one of the other reasons the schools are so important. That's good. That could show the way. That could lead the way for the club system, because high school kids, they don't know about the big money. They don't care about that. They're playing for pride of their school right now to be the best one.
Yep.
So that is so important. I mean, if we can do that, and then you create, thousands of players. Like every school that's going right now is manufacturing foosball kids.
Yes.
Right?
Enthusiasts.
70 to 100 a year are graduating, and they've played foosball in a tournament.
And they're going to keep playing, regardless of whether they're in school or not.
Right.
And they get into this extracurricular foosball activity, which doesn't depend upon their school anymore. Once they get old enough, that's huge, especially if there's a club waiting to take them in.
Right. And then clubs want, you're looking for the best players, and if you can find somebody that's good and can help your club win, then you're going to try and get them on board.
Yep.
So.
Yep. Well, it can be much more exciting. And hey, anything that you think that Foosball Radio can do to help this process, we're open to suggestions by all means. Anything that you can think of, and let us know. And what we'll do is we'll get together frequently to talk about it and see how things are going. Anything that you'd like to talk about as far as promotions are concerned? Something else that you feel needs to change?
Just the last thing that I always see promoters make mistakes on is they try to promote relying on outside players to come and support their event.
Right.
If you're not a good enough promoter to promote your local area and get your own players build up from your own city,
sure,
you have no right to promote a tournament big enough to draw somebody from another state and rely on that for income. So many promoters try and run a 10-grander in their first time.
Mm-hmm.
And what are you expecting to do? You're going to hurt the tour. You're going to hurt somebody else's tournament.
You fall short.
Because you're taking players that aren't yours.
Yep. And there might be other tournaments, regional tournaments they're not even aware of that they're interfering with.
Right.
So,
but I just believe that, and if there was some way to monitor, there is no way right now, but there should be a way to monitor who can run a tournament. And until you show that you can run a weekly and develop a good turnout for your weekly tournaments, then you can run a one-day tournament, and start out a little $500 one.
Yep.
But the whole thing is there's so many promoters out there now that if they ran something little, their locals wouldn't even come and support them.
No doubt. Yeah, no, I get what you're saying. I totally get what you're saying there. So we've had discussions about this before, but we're trying to reestablish New York State Championships.
Right.
Now there's a junior state championships going on with John O'Brien and Mark Jolette.
Yeah.
That's working pretty well. We want to get back to doing the full New York State Championships. What do you think is going to be the obstacles there? Do you think there's anything we need to do?
I think to start off with, I think any state championships should have a state championship doubles.
Okay.
So only if we have a New York State Championships, we should have New York doubles.
Okay.
And that's the New York State champion. You don't need, right now, you could have North Carolina states, but you're going to have somebody from another state win it.
Yeah.
What is that, right? How many states can you win?
Sure.
No, you're trying to find out a state championship. You're supposed to find out who the best in the state is.
Yes.
That lives in that state.
I gotcha.
Right?
Okay. So you've got to get a player base going within your state.
You should, yeah. Because, if you wanted to play in New York State Championships, you should be a New York State resident.
Okay. Understood. No, I know in the past with New York State Championships, I think the first one I went to was in 2011. There were people from Canada and, from New York City, but also Connecticut and, all over the Northeast.
Right.
And there were certainly other people from even further away than that, I think. But yeah, I mean, I guess when you think about it, because they're trying to attract more people and bring in more money. That's the problem.
Right.
Yeah.
If they try and run something too big for their area, that means they have to rely on outside players, which means they're, once again, poaching and, players.
Sure.
And, I mean, I was always, when I started Empire State Table Soccer, we ran the Albany City Championships. I didn't ever even send a flyer out. I didn't care.
Really?
Outside the state.
Okay.
I just at my locations, and that's where my player base was. So I grew my player base from the ground up in my own area in Albany. And I didn't care if anybody else came to the tournaments or not. And that's why I didn't jump and try and hurry up and get to a $10,000 or $15,000 tournament, to run it when there's not enough locals, if there wasn't enough locals to support it.
I gotcha. Yeah, that's it's intriguing because it's most of the state championships that you go to do feature people from out of the state.
Yeah. And I mean, what good does that do that local promoter if he's doing a state championship and somebody from outside the state wins? Who in his state is ever going to know who won?
Who that is?
I would rather have two of my local guys win a New York State because they go out to the bars and they get drunk and they get beat.
Yeah.
And then people see, hey, I just beat the state champion. And guess what? They're going to come out to the tournaments to try and beat him again. Because they beat them. They think one game is a big deal,
Yep. I get that.
So you need the local guys to win so they can go spread word of mouth to draw more people in. And it worked like a charm for me. That's why we always had good turnouts at all my
back
events.
in the past. Yeah, absolutely. So do you see yourself ever really getting back into full-time into the promotions thing?
I don't think so. It was... It's definitely hard work. It's thankless work.
Yeah.
And I just don't know if I have enough energy to do it right now, to get back into it.
Well, I mean, you've got a lot of things going on when it comes to playing as a player, as a pro. Now, I forgot to ask you, when you were in the German championships, was that considered a world championship? I've forgotten now, but you were on Team USA when you went there.
Right, and we won the team championships. We won the World Cup.
You did?
Yeah.
Gotcha. Now you also, there was a senior division, and you competed in that?
Yep, that's the one. The open team won gold, and the senior team won gold, and I think the women's team got third.
Oh, that's amazing.
And that was, So
what was that like, by the way?
Dude, it was incredible. It was incredible. I mean, going over there, I told you where I came from. I was a hardcore tornado. Never thought I'd ever... Didn't care about playing for nothing. When you go over there and you play for your country, there is nothing.
Yes.
There is nothing like it.
That's the ultimate pride right there.
It changed my whole outlook on foosball. It changed everything that I ever had believed in.
No kidding.
And if I could figure out how, the new drum, I guess knowing that Foosball Club USA is on the right path, any effort I have is going towards them.
Yes.
Yeah. I don't want to waste my effort anymore. I looked at Empire State, wasn't a bad thing, but when in the end, every 5 years I did a new business plan. Found out there wasn't enough locations to really make it huge. So that's one of the things that ended up petering me out in it. But I want to make sure whatever vehicle I pick this time has a chance to succeed, and I'm not wasting my time on it.
Yeah, I like that efficiency of your support.
Right. Well, because I'm really enjoying playing, and I've always wanted to just be a player.
Yeah.
And now I can be, so it's really hard to give that up and go back in any other direction.
For your past support and the things you have done in the past, thank you. Because it's something that when people talk about Greg Mendel, they refer to you as someone who's taught a lot of great players, which you should take pride in, of course. And I hope you do.
Oh yeah.
But yeah, I mean, it's something that we as spectators and fans of this sport love the idea there's somebody like yourself out there making people better, and taking the time and the patience to do so.
Well, like you said, I get satisfaction if I can show you what you need to fix, and I see you actually do it, and you put time in. I'll keep giving you more information. If I can see you taking what I'm telling you and what you're suggesting, and you can see it working,
getting better.
There's nothing better than that. And I don't even. So I've had a couple of my locals beat me by doing what I told them, and I couldn't even be upset with them. You don't like to lose, but at the same time, hey, they did what I told them, and it worked.
I got you. I got you.
So it's like, because I won. Right?
Yeah.
I won, even though I beat myself. What you want?
Proof of the pudding. I won.
Right.
I won. Nobody can argue with that. So here's the thing. First of all, I want to thank you for taking the time to talk with us. I mean, this is so cool. When are you going to be back in the upstate New York area?
That I don't know. I know that I'll be here for the next couple of days, and then I'm probably going to go up to Plattsburgh for a couple of weeks, and then back to Milwaukee.
Gotcha.
And after that, it's anybody's guess the way my company's been going.
Yeah. So for 2019, any tour stops you want to mention you're going to be on?
I'm going to be trying to hit them all.
Good.
I don't know.
Yeah.
I've been having a pretty good rate of hitting them.
Yeah. So we're as a team here in Foosball Radio, we're planning on getting out to some of the tour stops as well. So more than likely we'll run into you.
Oh yeah. I keep in touch with you guys.
Nice. Very cool. Well, we'd hope so. Don't be a stranger.
Nope, not at all.
But Greg, thanks for taking the time to talk, man. This has been cool.
Definitely, Rob. Yeah, Rob. Tom?
I've been called worse. Yeah. I used to teach radio to adults, and they used to call me T Rob. That was my nickname.
There you go.
So yeah, I've heard much worse. Believe me.
I'm in a bad habit of calling people by their last name. So
it's cool.
I did it to Jim Stevens.
Did you really call him
Steve? He's like, my name's Jim. Thanks, Greg. He never let me be on Inside Foos again.
I can imagine. That's it. You're banned. Right? That's it. Done.
I can't say his name right.
Jim is a class act. I gotta say.
He is.
All right. Well, thanks again. And listen, let's do this real soon.
No problem.
All right,
Thank
Greg.
you.
Greg Mendel on Foosball Radio. We'll be back after this.
Greg has been a mentor and friend to so many foosball players. We thank him for his time on air and his continued support. Finally, during the same 518 Foosball Smashdown tournament, we caught up with pro player and New York State Championship tournament promoter Kevin Westcott. In this interview, you'll also hear the voice of Jeff Scarchilli, a member of the 518 Foosball crew, jumping in as co-host.
It's all about timing, right?
We're just, you can't, because it has to be something that makes sense for people to travel to, right? So when you have multiple tournaments in, a 5, 6, even, 7-hour radius.
Yep.
It's virtually impossible to get everybody at every tournament, especially if they're within a 2 or 3 month period. Just people won't do it.
So okay.
So is the time frame the problem?
No. Once Pennsylvania states decided they were going to be later in the year towards the fall, and really too close for Worlds, it just doesn't make sense. I really pulled out thinking that he would get a bigger turnout. Right. I mean,
got it.
I was like, all right, why hurt each other? Why don't we just focus on one? And it didn't happen. He didn't get the Canadian players because it's a little bit farther to drive, right? They're having, some of them are having to drive 12 hours to get there. So
no doubt.
At this point, for me, it's just my career is taking over my life. I have to focus on it. I have more responsibilities.
It's about having a life. You got a family too.
So 15 years running the New York tournament, and at this point, I think it makes sense for the people that are really engaged with promoting right now. And so Chuck and Nino are in it, and Nino for a good reason, right? Because he has. His son is playing at a very high level, and they're going to a lot of tournaments. So I just think it makes sense. I think he'll get people to want to come because he supports tournaments, right? So. Not that people wouldn't support my tournament, right? It just, but you can kind of say, and I'll say it first, that I haven't put what I needed to put in.
So just to catch me up, just getting back into it. So so New York State did happen last year, right?
Happened last year, not here. It was in Amsterdam.
Yeah. Okay.
It did happen.
And it was gonna you had it scheduled to go.
Had a hotel signed, ready to go, and conversations happened, leading up to the event, especially with Pennsylvania, going on, and you have to have support, right? So I think we put the wagon, a little bit ahead of the horse, and whenever you do a state tournament, there's negotiating when it comes to multiple sides, right? So
there's a lot of aspects, right?
Yeah. It's not just the hotel. That's like your ground. It's your groundwork.
1 in 50.
Right, exactly. And then you work in what it's going to cost for the tables. Then you have to work in what it's going to be for staff.
Yep.
And we got to the second part of it. We got the hotel, and then we got to the second part, and we did the math. And actually, Chuck and I had a conversation on the phone because she had actually talked to him after I said I'm out.
Yep.
And he was like, hey, let's make sure we're on the same page. And we both did the same numbers. And we're like, hey, listen, we need 150, 160 just to break even.
Sure.
So you just can't do that. And there's been many times where I paid out of my own pocket. It's like went back and forth like
That's
a little
tough
bit
to
over
do.
the years. But for me, really, the underlying truth of the whole thing is that we just had too many events going on.
Right.
Pennsylvania, I feel like farther south, they can probably flirt with the weather more. I don't understand why they wouldn't flirt with, maybe January timeframe, a couple months after, things go on. Because let's be honest, the guys that used to travel religiously to Kentucky don't go there anymore. I went for the first time in 10 years. It is a trip, and when we were younger,
for the Northeast,
we were
Absolutely.
younger, we'd go 12 hours, right, in a car. Now, I mean, and it's not a really friendly place to fly into, right? And it's also
you got
not
to drive out anyway. Even when you fly in, you still got to drive an hour and a half to get to the tournament.
And it's not a huge draw, and I'm not saying that's ultimately the solution, but we all know what Maryland is right now, right? So if Maryland's going to be in the first half of the year for the Northeast, let's promote that, and let's have one in the second half. Pennsylvania and New York being 2 months away, it would hurt both of us, and likely we would have lost money, and,
Sure.
So
there's only so many players to spread around, and if they're traveling, and of course the expense, right? Each individual player is spending a lot of money with, let's say, within 3 months, they're going to 2 tournaments. What's that? $1,500 over 2 tournaments to play?
Yeah, that's probably on the low end, right? I mean, that's
depending how far they're traveling.
Yeah,
and how
that's
they're
right.
getting there, sure.
That's the low end. I think most people spend more than that because you feel like you're on vacation, right? So you're spending money on other types of types of things.
I think about Nino DiJohn when he's got Sammy, Sammy, and he's also got Hannah. And they're going out to tournaments as a family, and they're spending, 3 times normal, what most people would play?
Nino's not here right now, but I'll just say, so what? You know why? You know why I say so what? I mean, think about, is there a hobby out there that doesn't cost you money? So that just happens to be, he doesn't have a boat, or he's playing foosball. So, and we all make that decision. And the truth is, what a great way to build memories.
With kids.
And I mean, they're going to look back, and they're going to have some things to really cherish, you know what I mean? And
it's like going to Disneyland every 2 months.
Right.
I think part of that too. We were talking about this earlier too, about going to tournaments and what you got to do. Like you got to take it as if you're going to go to tournaments, you got to manage everything. You got to manage the money you're spending on food, the money you're spending on a room. You got to find ways to cut that cost down, and that's just part of making money and going to tournaments.
Well, especially when you get to a certain level, I think that there comes a point where it stops being. And that's what the heart of what a pro is, right? I think the pro player, not just based on points, because there are guys that probably deserve to have that rating that just don't travel as much as other people, so they don't gain the points, or they're going to tournaments like this. Guess what? If you are coming to this tournament, and we're in Albany at the Smashdown, if you come to this tournament and you compete and you place in the top 3, you're playing against some of the best that we have in the Northeast.
No doubt.
So,
no doubt.
But there's no points. You're not accumulating anything when you come to this tournament.
With that
and that
said,
happens a lot.
And with that said, I should mention to our Foosball Radio audience, we are backstage, so to speak, at the Smashdown in Clifton Park, New York, October the 20th of 2018. And today was the first day of the Foosball Radio came on the market, so to speak. So what we're doing here today is basically talking to you, Kevin Westcott, and
thanks.
Jeff Scarcelli. Jeff is one of our 518 Foosers. He's shall we say, guest host.
I'm like a cousin. That's I've wore the 518, because I played with everybody. Well, there's no, other than
I would say you're more than a cousin. You're more like an in-law.
Yeah, right. Well, you remember I grew up, 45 minutes from Albany, so it's just closer to my home.
We consider Kevin an honorary 518.
Right. Yeah, absolutely.
Not more than that.
And besides, they're the ones that, they're the ones that
talk
talked me into doing the New York State tournament. By the way, if you go way back in time.
Oh, really?
Oh, yeah, it was almost like a double dare kind of dog.
Seriously. Hold on a second. I need to hear more about this because I don't know your origins as far as where you come from as far as promoting New York State. How many years did you do that?
15 years. Yeah.
15.
Yep.
And it started when?
Well, the first year was 05. Yeah, 05.
Okay.
Yeah.
And over the years that you've done this, what happened? What changed? What was?
Well, I mean, I think that we, as a group, right? Because I really took a lot of input when we first started it because I wanted to make sure we were running it as our tournament, which I think is why it was so popular.
Yep.
But it changed a lot. Like we got to the end of a tournament and we discussed and we had open dialogue and I reached out to players. and that kind of like dissipated based on my own involvement with the game. You know, and one of the reasons why it makes sense for me to step away a little bit. You know, it's
so you're a player. I mean, there's no doubt about that.
That's what I.
What are you ranked as?
Yeah, I'm a pro.
Pro,
I'm a pro,
gotcha.
yeah.
And Jeff, you're
I'm an expert.
Expert, gotcha. So you guys
sandbagging pro.
A high expert.
I've heard that before. It's not a secret. But no, so to get to that level obviously requires practice. You've got to constantly working on your game.
Yeah.
But when you're doing a tournament, do you get an opportunity to do that?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, I think that because it's a group of people that run it, it's not a one-man event.
Yeah.
You know, John's the exception. John takes it a little bit to the extreme because he wants to have control of it. Well, he just wants to have control of it. So he doesn't get to play as much during his own tournaments that, you know, maybe he should.
Yeah,
but it's gotten
Maryland
better though.
tournaments.
He'll tell you it's gotten better. He's got other people around him. Ray has helped a lot.
Sure.
You know, so it gets him the opportunity to focus on his game a little bit more, and the results show. Like he's been competing really well over the last couple of years. You know.
So how have you grown? Let's say over the last 10 years as a player because of the tournaments. I mean, what's happened to you as personally as a player?
Well, the competition is just so much better than it was even 10, 15. Oh yeah. The style of play is totally different. We used to be really just smash mouth foosball. The American style of foosball was smash mouth. It was, you know, set it on a straight pin or and hit it as hard as you could, you know. And now the game has really changed to more finesse. I think that we're smarter.
Match.
Yeah, you're smart. We're smarter, you know.
The mental game has definitely increased. It used to be, if you're going back to like the mid 90s to up into 2000, it was definitely just, like you said, smash mouse. You were just hitting things hard, heavy recoils, fast, powerful, just trying intimidation.
The strongest players were typically the ones that hit the hardest.
People weren't, they weren't thinking it out. There was only a few players out there that really were using the mental, like Lewis Cartwright.
Yeah.
In that whole mix of that, he was like one of the mental guys.
Yeah.
He was definitely out figuring things out.
Yeah,
there weren't enough of them.
Yeah, Lewis
now
was definitely.
It's definitely on the other way. Where
He's definitely categorized. I mean, he had great execution too, but he definitely had a great, mental game. But overall, if you want to really get to the root of it, is the 5-bar. The 5-bar is really what's changed. Everything, and not just offensively. Offensively, yes, but defensive 5-bars really can change change the
more
momentum.
Possessions.
Oh yeah, absolutely. There are guys that don't have great 3-bars that still win. I mean,
sure.
More
opportunities.
Oh yeah, but I think that even you talk at even the top level. I mean, anyone that plays Tony will say that his 5-bar is what you can't stop. I mean, you just can't stop. You can slow him down on the 3 a little bit, but he's just going to keep getting the ball. 5 is just
like that on top of the speed and his ability to pick balls up. So you have the 5-bar accuracy, and it picks all those extra balls up for real. So
right.
He's living with the ball.
Yeah.
No,
it's
that's the difference,
shot,
right?
So.
I mean, it's funny because you look at the top pros as opposed to the core 4, the Ryan Moores, the Tony Sprademans, the Todd Lafredos. Those guys are just that much better than that next echelon down, and it's because of their 5-row.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's all because
I don't know if Todd would say that. I mean, Todd is, just his overall game is really
right.
It's when it's funny. It's hard to compare because they're all there at the top level, but for different reasons. Like in my eyes, and they're different generations too.
Yeah.
Like Tom, for Todd to be out there still being one of the top players, he's been doing it for so long. So
35
not only does he
years.
have the intelligence, obviously the physical abilities, he's got tons of experience too to build up around that. He probably knows more about that game than anybody.
Well, he's got.
But Tony's obviously
his
there
nerves.
Too now.
I mean, his nerves. Like you watch the guy play, he just does not let the
rattled.
moment ever get to him. Like he just.
Him.
And he probably would tell you that he has nerves at times, but we just don't see it. We don't see that.
After all these years, what is it, 35, 36 years for Todd now?
Yeah.
How old is he exactly?
That I don't know.
Yeah, we're on radio. Yeah. Todd, you're like 41, right? Something like that. 42.
He's 35, 36.
Yeah. Yeah.
And this is coming from a 60-year-old, by the way, so.
Yeah.
Everybody looks young to me.
Yeah. Little hair dye, we're all good.
Yeah. So Jeff, when it comes to playing with Kevin all these years, what's the most remarkable thing about going to a New York State Championships that he was throwing? I mean, back in the day.
The New York State tournament. I mean, obviously for us, it's location. The location to go to a big tournament that drew a lot of players, a lot of top players, like. a hard part of living in the Northeast is that a lot of the top players are nowhere near here. You know
Right,
what I mean?
right.
We only have a couple of really good top pro players here, and that was kind of our whole thing, like 1 or 2 or 3.
Yeah.
So like when you go to the Northeast, especially we were talking when it originally started,
Right.
like really none of us, like the guys that are pros now here in this area, they weren't then.
Yep.
Right.
So to see those top pros and get the experience to play those guys without having to travel out to them,
Sure,
they actually came to
sure.
us.
Okay.
So that was a big part of the North. That's why everybody wanted to go to the New York State
Yeah.
tournament, because it was a big draw for
Yeah.
top players were going there. We were getting Lafredo and Spreederman and all those guys.
Well,
coming
yeah, I
out to that
mean,
tournament.
actually, probably one of the most memorable moments. Sorry, Tony, when Kevin beat Tony in open
Kevin
singles.
Walker.
Like, first time they played him, and Kevin's been just really, really solid for so long, and I
Right.
took him a little bit by surprise, and I don't think that was. That was probably, more or less, Tony not having experience against, Kevin. But
Sure,
that was a huge
sure.
win. We were pumped about that,
Yeah.
I think
to see something like that.
That gave him a lot of exposure too. I think that kind of put him on all of their radar, like
For
Kevin Walker
for
was.
good
Yeah,
reason.
yeah.
For good
Absolutely, yeah,
reason.
yeah.
I mean,
No doubt.
But-
What year was that?
that had to have been 2007 when Tony started coming to New York. We had 2 years in probably when Tony started coming, and then he was there pretty much every year and cleaned up.
Yeah.
Like every tournament,
Which is no surprise.
No, he's awesome. He's awesome.
No, so when it comes to the New York State Championships today, we do have to certainly really regroup and think about this.
Well, we're just passing the torch, really. I mean,
Yeah.
honestly, that's really what it is. As soon as people are aware that Nino and Chuck are going to be the ones
Sure.
that are promoting that, especially because they're involved now, it's going to take off. Like,
Have they started talking about when they're going to do the tournament? Like we're moving on to next year at this point, right?
Yeah,
so
we
we're
are.
going into
We
next
are,
year
for sure.
So that
Yeah.
will be 2019 if you're listening to this right now.
Right.
Yeah, it will be, and that'll really be up to them. I'm fine with giving some input, but the truth is they've been around the game long enough that they they have a handle. I mean, look at the tournament we had today. I mean, they know how to run
the
a tournament.
Smashdown is actually
they know what they're doing.
A lot of fun. Yeah, there's no question. No, I think that New York State, as in so many places within this country, you've got little pockets of interest or enthusiasm about the sport.
Yeah.
But there's just not enough cohesion. It's about
It's that
coming
you
together.
have Florida that's just taken the whole country by storm. Like they're just
right.
insane right now.
Like the way Texas used to be.
I mean, and you know what? Tony will probably listen to this. I mean, it's all him. I mean, he's a great, ambassador of the game. He shows people how to play the game.
Funny how his name keeps coming up for some reason.
Well, he's the best. He's the best right now. He's the best. It's
he's
hard.
He's the face too. He's
Yeah.
the face of
Well, and you know
foosball.
what?
Right.
He's
keep
great
hearing more
on
and
and
more
off the
stories
table.
about
I
him.
mean, what he does with kids, but that group
Sure.
of players is getting the opportunity to play him. He doesn't let them win, but they're still there. They know that if they can stay with Tony, and they're going to be able to really, really play anyone else tough. And then they proved it. I mean, at Worlds, they're imposing with pictures with all the titles, that they have. You have your one-offs. There's a lot of other players that are really good in it, but their consistency right now. If you had to move somewhere, you'd want to move to Florida right now.
Right.
Tampa.
To play
Specifically Tampa.
Yeah, you're an hour from Clearwater. Who doesn't want to be there?
I was that quick story. I was there in August, and we just happened to we had a vacation in Tampa. It's
Nice.
where we decided to go, and I knew that those guys were playing out there. So I was like, we were out there all week, and I was like, Wednesday they have a tournament, so I got a hold of Rob Cato. Cato runs the Tampa, Florida out there.
Yep.
An Albany boy, right? I mean, Amsterdam.
Yep, and he's from a hometown guy. So I reached out to him, and he said, "Yeah, we're out there playing." But my bad luck, it was the week of the Worlds. So all those guys were gone. There was nobody there. It was just
So you
Rob
won.
and a few.
You won then, right?
Of course.
You won.
Yes.
That's no fun.
Yeah. So I didn't get to play with any of those guys, but I did want to see. They have a nice location. They have a good tournament. They had, the tables out there. It was a nice place. I enjoyed playing out there.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, I didn't get to play any of the top guys. None of them were there.
Yeah, they were all cleaning up at Worlds.
Yes. Yep.
So, just a quick question for both of you. First, Kevin, what do you see as the future? Let's say 10 years down the line, what do you think that this sport is going to look like?
Are you asking me what I think it takes, or where I see it going now?
What can it be in 10 years?
Well, I mean, it really just depends on the youth, right? I mean, it's a youth movement right now, and we've got the seed. I mean, if you're asking for my opinion, I really I love. What Warrior does to have a table that is accessible.
Yep.
The durability is getting better from what I understand, but somebody's got to really get to the point where they're thinking about how they can get the schools involved without a big commitment monetarily, right? Yes. Because if that happens and you get foosball tables in schools, they're going to play, right? So for me, I played basketball and baseball, the team sports, but we had a ping pong table and we all played it, right? So just because it was there.
Sure.
So the same thing can be applied. Now, I know that the idea is that if you're going to do that, you have to have somebody that's there and helping push it along, but I don't believe that's what you need in the beginning. I think you just need to have tables in different areas and see what the interest is. And then if there is, I think the schools are more apt to probably spend money.
Of course.
Right?
Of course. And if they see the value, the way they're seeing it, let's say, in Plattsburgh with Mark Drolat.
Right.
I mean, he's got 70 kids playing in the school district.
Right.
That's
so we know that that's what works. So if you're asking me, we know what works.
Yep.
We know that starting the schools is what's going to promote the game. We're not going to find the guys like Jeff and I who started playing in bars. It's not going to happen.
Yep.
And we live in a different economy, really. We could go out with $15 or $20 and we could get hammered and play foosball, right? You're not doing that now. It just doesn't. It's a different age, right? I mean,
it's a different vibe.
Yeah, for sure. So it's not going to happen that way. And for me, I think that you just have to give the schools a reason to want to just accept the table.
Sure.
And maybe it works like this. Look, we're going to do this. You're going to get it a year. And at the end of the year, we'd like to see if there's interest for us to continue. If not, pull the table and put it somewhere else, right?
Sure.
What's the real commitment?
And try and develop an interscholastic kind of competition thing.
Right.
Let's say within a region. You've got 15 schools, 15 high schools within a specific region. They all have tables. They all get together to do regional tournaments.
Right, so you have that right now, and you get. I mean, if you went to the junior tournament, they had 50, 60 kids playing foosball.
Wow,
and that's
nice.
I mean, how do you beat that? I mean, that's where it's at. So, where it can be in 10 years, it's that. It's going to take an effort on everyone's part, right, to be able to do that, and you got to support. And John and I, John O'Brien, had conversations when he first started thinking about how his kids were like the pioneers, and he asked me my opinion, and my opinion was to do it on your own. Right. Don't look for what everyone else has been doing. You really have to mold it. No one has ventured into what you're doing, so you can get input from people and take. Sure. But you really just you have to steer it the way, and he's done a phenomenal job of steering it and understanding what it takes in the schools. I told him, I go, we're not in the school. We're not within the programs that you have, and you've got to understand that. So he's got some literature that's really compelling. So if there are schools that are interested, he can send the literature, and he spent a lot of time and effort on it. Kudos to him for that.
Yeah, no doubt about it.
So right now, who is in the schools? Like Mark Westcott, is he in the schools?
He's in.
He's got his own program too. He's following suit.
He's got.
Are those the only two that we know of?
That so far.
Wow.
And the whole thing is you got to show the value to the superintendent of the school district.
Sure. Yep.
That hey, we'll supply somebody who will come in and once a week teach a class.
Right.
Or support at least take care of the table or tables.
It's fun, right? I mean, foosball's fun. Yeah. And that's the thing. Let's for what it is. We all play because it's fun.
Yeah.
So, I thank you for having me on.
Oh, sure.
Tom, it was a real pleasure.
I want to get your perspective. I mean, this is something you've been up to for a long time. For credibility's sake. Are you kidding?
Yeah. Thanks, man. Thanks. I feel like I haven't been, what I was when it came to, I put a lot of, effort into it. And it's, which is why I'm stepping away a little bit, So
Understood.
It's not that I don't love the game or don't want to play or don't want to promote, it's just, it's time, right? So but thank you.
Everybody needs to pull back, and you're welcome, very welcome, and thanks for being here.
Yeah,
Kevin.
and listen.
So, G, any or Jeff, any parting questions you'd like to ask Kevin before he rocks?
I got nothing. I think it's getting late. And
We'll
it's time,
see you
it's
on
time
the
to
table.
cut.
That's what it is.
Right.
Kevin is a great player and super booster for the sport of foosball. We're so grateful for his time on the air. Also, thanks to Jeff Scarchilli for jumping in as co-host. On that note, we hope you enjoyed this, our 3rd anniversary celebration with the Foosball Radio Lost Interviews. Once again, thanks to John Lee, Ray Schneider, Greg Mendel, and Kevin Westcott for their help. Foos Talk Live will return next week for our 81st live episode. Meanwhile, tune in this Tuesday for the 6th episode of Shootin' the Shot with Clay Toomey on Podbean and foosballradio.com. Inside Foos and Foos Talk Live proudly present Shootin' The Shot with Clay Toomey. Tuesday.
We're sitting down for a conversation with Clay Toomey.
And? I don't introduce anybody. I'll let everybody introduce themselves.
I got it. So I'm Tom Robinson from Foostalk Live, Foosball Radio.
I'm looking at, you see me playing on my phone. I promise it's not just random playing on my phone. I'm looking up the podcast app here to see how many episodes. Foosball Radio between the live, Foostalk Live, and then also the other episodes. You're at you're 109 episodes in.
Yeah.
How you did something with this that nobody else has done, and I know other people have had podcasts, people have had this, people have had that, all that stuff. But the level of professionalism that you brought when Foosball Radio became a thing was unprecedented in the foosball world.
Okay,
where did you get that idea? What started that? How I just want to know the story, if you don't mind sharing from the beginning, how that all got going.
I'm still wondering myself how we got here.
Shooting the Shot with Clay Toomey this Tuesday. Find it on Podbean or foosballradio.com. Foos Talk Live is a product of Inside Foos, all rights reserved. Brought to you in part by InsideFoos.com, Protectoflex, Rodlock, 518 Prince, Foosballers the Movie, the USTSO, and Foosball Clubs USA. Tune in again next week for another episode of Foos Talk Live. In the meantime,
we'll see you foozin'.
This is Adam Gilson, Foosball Radio 3rd Anniversary Celebration. Comments? Take 153.
Okay, this one's the gold. All right, I got it. I'm focused and I'm centered. What has Foosball Radio meant to me? People care about foosball. Tom cares about foosball. Jim cares about foosball, and not just getting to talk about it in the small sense that we do at tournaments, but it lets us experience foosball outside of the foosball tournament environment, and expands upon our appreciation of the people that actually play when we get to hear them, talk to them on the show. And for those out there that aren't able to play every weekend, it's kind of a fun little outlet to be involved in foosball, but not actually be at a foosball tournament. So that's what Foosball Radio has meant to me.